Do you want to find a stress-free way to buy your next car? Start at CarMax and shop your way. If you want to browse with confidence, get pre-qualified online with no impact on your credit score and shop cars within your budget. From luxury cars to family rides, CarMax has options for almost every price range, including more than 25,000 cars priced under $25,000. So, hey, want to get started? Just head to CarMax.com for details and get pre-qualified today. Want to drive? CarMax.
And the whole truth. Hey now.
Hey now.
What's up, friends? Welcome to a Friday episode. It is the 24th of July as I record, and this is a listener DMs episode. But in addition to the listener DMs, I'm also going to weave in a whole ton of audio that I think you should hear. By the end of this episode, you're going to have so much more context than what you're getting from the news, because they only show you the clips they want you to see. Well, there's some other things that I think you need to know about, and I'm going to start off with the Prime Minister. Yesterday in PEI, he was asked about the deal that he did with the Americans over the Gordie Howe Bridge. Here's the Prime Minister.
For the Prime Minister, you told CTV News explicitly on July 12 that the splitting of profits or net revenue with the U.S. from the Gordie Howe Bridge would only happen after accounting for the debt of the bridge, but that's not what the text of the new deal says. So, was that a lie, and were you downplaying your concessions to Trump?
Thank you for the question. First, let's be clear about what the deal is and isn't with respect to the bridge. And the first thing is, this is a good deal. This is a good deal for Canadian businesses, workers. It's a good deal for the future of our commerce with them. Put in context, there is about $300 billion a year of trade on the land link between Michigan and Ontario. And Premier Ford knows every dime of that trade. He's got it tracked. So $300 billion, a huge amount of trade. So this creates an important link, and it's an absolute, it's an engineering marvel, and it's a testament to the workers who created it. So that's. Secondly, the underlying agreement between Canada and Michigan remains in place. That's the underlying full text, weighty agreement. I'm illustrating the thickness of that agreement. It's in the public domain. Under that agreement, there is no splitting of tolls under that agreement, which is what I was referring to, perhaps imperfectly, but there's no splitting of tolls under that agreement until all of the debt is repaid, debt from Canada. For reference, and it depends on how much traffic and, there's various sensitivities, but for reference, that's about 50 years. It takes about 50 years for that to kick in. In parallel with this, there is an agreement in principle, which was published earlier this week, between Canada and the United States. And under that agreement, there is a sharing of net revenues after operating expenses, various other expenses, not including debt repayment. I should have been clear, that's referred to in the Michigan agreement with respect to tolls, but that is under the parallel agreement. But the sharing of proceeds with the United States goes into economic development that would support traffic ultimately on the bridge. So there's an alignment of incentives. The combination of that agreement and the sharing under that, it is a very marginal impact on the overall economics. Okay, very marginal, because it takes time for traffic to ramp up. There's various costs, there's various sharing. It gets fed back in. And to put it in order of magnitude, it's less than 5% in present value of the overall cost of developing the bridge. So that's the overall what it is, what it isn't. And yeah, could I have explained it better on a Sunday morning at Stampede? Yeah, with a cowboy hat on? Yes, I could have explained it better. And I explained it better in London, Ontario at GDLS, but I appreciate the opportunity. And
let me see if I can sort out what he's done. We had the deal. We kept all the tolls. Trump comes in and says, I want to renegotiate the deal. So we gave them 50% of the net revenue for 15 years. Then I guess we go back to the original Michigan deal where Canada keeps everything until we're paid off. So we don't even start getting paid back for 15 years unless we apply our half of the toll revenue to paying off the debt, which I would hope we would do, but apparently there's operating costs. They're also a little wishy-washy on how many people are actually going to use this bridge. Well, if there's that much demand for this bridge, I would assume that it's going to get used very quickly. You know, it's funny the way they characterize this. They make it seem like we're losing billions and billions of dollars a day because this bridge isn't open. That's completely untrue. The commerce going back and forth now has two options. They've got the tunnel or they've got the bridge, the Ambassador Bridge. So right now, all the commerce is getting back and forth. Nothing is stuck. It's just taking a little longer to get over the bridge when you go at peak time. So this whole thing is getting concerning here. We spent $6 billion on this, and the Prime Minister gave half of the revenue to the Americans for 15 years. He can say all he wants. Well, it'll help us. It aligns with our interests, too, because they're going to use it for economic development in that area. Well, that doesn't mean it's going to force cars over the bridge. I think we just gave away billions of dollars. But anyway, let's get to a DM. First one up. This is one that just came in earlier this morning from Sonia. Hi, Scott. Hold on a minute. Did I hear you say you will have an open door policy as an MP? Did I understand that correctly in your pod today? Sonia, you are referring to yesterday's pod. I did some listener DMs at the end of that one, and I did make a comment similar to that, an inadvertent Easter egg, if you will. Just so you know, I am getting closer to making the announcement, but right now I'm bound by confidentiality. So did I say that yesterday? Yeah, I did. It's still out there if anybody wants to go back and listen to it, right near the end of the episode. Can I say anything formally in the way of an announcement yet? Not yet, Sonia, but please be patient and thank you for being interested. I appreciate that. Next one. This is from Dan. Hey, brother. Just a quick shout out to you and the great work you've been doing over the years. Question, and maybe you've covered this already and I've just missed it. How do listeners message you for comments, thoughts, ideas for listener DMs pods? Keep up the great work, brother. Dan, thank you very much. I appreciate that. You can get into my DMs the same way you just did. When you message me on Instagram or X or Facebook or just about all of the platforms, those are where I get these listener DMs from. So, hey, you already figured it out. Dan, fire away if there's something else you want to know. Now let's go to another one from the Prime Minister yesterday in PEI.
Last year, you made the decision to remove many counter-tariff measures. So what kinds of trade retaliation measures are you willing to consider now, if any? And is everything on the table if there's no agreement before August 19th?
Everything's on the table if there's no agreement, depending on the outcome of the negotiations, yes.
There is the Prime Minister saying what Doug Ford said. All options are on the table. All options are on the table. Me personally, I find that a little cowardly because we know we could shut off their hydro and cut their energy. They know that we could shut off some hydro and cut their energy. But nobody's actually saying it. But I have to infer, and I think this is what Doug Ford and Mark Carney want, that when they say everything's on the table, they're subtly suggesting that energy is on the table. Personally, I don't think that's a smart negotiation tactic. I think the Americans are going to consider that a threat. And that's not just a threat, that's a serious threat. You know who happens to agree with me? I want you to hear this as well. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith. You know, the Prime Minister, he seems to do a pretty good job at walking the diplomacy line. He seems to be pretty good at choosing the right words when it comes to talking about President Trump because he doesn't want to offend President Trump. That's the biggest mistake we could make because we don't want to make this emotional. This should be about business. Well, Danielle Smith is just as much a stateswoman. Listen to her talking yesterday on Power and Politics on the CBC.
I think it's very constructive to go into a negotiation saying or else, right? I mean, I think everybody is trying to get them to find out what the or else is. And I don't think you go into a negotiation promising to punch someone in the nose. You go into a negotiation talking about a win-win. And I think that that's more the Prime Minister's style, and I'm glad to see that. What I would say is if you have to be very careful not to put things on the table that you're not prepared to do. And I'm going to try to prevent Canada from making a very dumb decision of putting energy on the table, because Line 5 goes through Michigan. If you cut off energy to the United States, they can cut off Line 5 and cut off energy to Ontario and Quebec. So no aviation fuel, no diesel, no gasoline, and we don't want to do that. So I would just say that it may sound tough to say those kind of things, but if you cannot do it practically and you're not prepared to live with the consequences of doing it, don't threaten it. And so there may be other things that with the passage of time that will come up, but I would say it's far more constructive to go into negotiations saying, hey, we want a deal, we want to maintain this really strong trade relationship, and let's see if we can both get a win out of it. That's my approach, and I think that's the Prime Minister's approach.
Right. I mean, the difference between maybe
I appreciate the heck out of Danielle Smith for having that posture. And you can tell those comments were aimed squarely at Ontario Premier Doug Ford. That was Danielle Smith warning Doug Ford, don't threaten it if you don't intend to go through with it. The question is, how crazy is Doug Ford? Would he go through with it? Would he actually shut off the hydro or start charging insane fees to the Americans to use the hydro that we send from Ontario into the northeast of the U.S.? Crazy times. I thought that was a very measured response from Danielle Smith, and I think she's absolutely right. Next listener DM. This is from Jackie. You know, I don't think Mr. Carney cares what happens to the people of Canada. He wants the country to go downhill. I mean, after all, isn't everything in his life in the States anyhow? His wife, kids, and his business. The better he makes things for them, the better off he will be. And the sacrifice is us. I also think Doug Ford needs to go. I like him, but he's letting Donald Trump rule his and our lives. Jackie, thank you very much. I don't know what the premier would think of that assertion, but I'm curious to hear. I don't hear reporters ask him about that, but Doug does seem to respond on a very heightened level anytime Donald Trump comes up or gets mentioned. Some people call that the Trump derangement syndrome, and that's fine. I mean, you don't have to like the guy, but when you're the leader, I think you've probably got to maintain some professionalism in your negotiations. And so far, threatening everything is on the table. Either say hydro and energy is on the table or take that off the table. What we're doing right now, it's not working. Next DM. This is from Aussie. Scott, here's my take. Open it all up. Create a North America Economic Union with an actual free trade agreement. No restrictions. It'll never happen, but that's my take. Ozzy, thank you. I don't see anything wrong with that. I thought that was going to be the eventual outcome, is that Canada and the USA would become very integrated, far more than we were before. There was an opportunity to do that. But I think the language coming out of the White House, I think the posture of Donald Trump, and I think the reputation of Trump himself is going to make that impossible for now. Whoever ends up replacing Donald Trump eventually, well, maybe then we can talk about it, but I think too much damage has been done. I don't think Canadians are ready to call it water under the bridge, even if it is a great deal. So I don't expect a full integration yet, even though I think that's probably the way we should be going. One more before I get to another clip. I want you to hear Elon Musk. I'm going to play you a quick clip from him in a minute, but this one here from Michelle. Scott, just a thought. So a Kirpin, religious item or weapon? Why is that legal, but bear spray is illegal? My God. Hey, Michelle, thank you for that. The Kirpin was in the news a lot lately, and I hope I'm saying that right. There was somebody who wore a very large one to the gym and was wearing it during their workout, and they were asked to leave because of that. We all have religious symbols that help us identify and stay close to our faith. For a lot of Christians, it would be a crucifix. For some religions, it might be the Kirpin. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but I would say that as long as it's being used for religious reasons, then there's really no problem with it. If that somehow creates a public safety issue, then we've got to have a more broad conversation. But one thing I'm really not prepared to sacrifice in this country is our freedom of religion. I don't know the whole story behind what happened at that gym. I've heard some stories about the person who did it. I don't even want to get involved, to be honest with you. I just want to make sure that protecting our right to pray to the God or prophet or whomever that we identify with the most is always protected and preserved. And I mean that for every single religion. Canada is a place where we should have religious freedom. Let me get to that clip I was telling you about. Elon Musk sitting down to do an interview. There's a documentary about Elon Musk that's going to premiere in just over a month at the Toronto International Film Festival. So Elon was doing an interview yesterday, and I think this reporter was trying to ask a gotcha question. But my God, please listen to the answer, especially if you're someone who is more on the conservative side of the political spectrum. You know what's gone on over the last number of years. Conservatives did not get more far right. Liberals took the center way far to the left. And Elon Musk does a great job at explaining that. Listen to this.
What the normal people.
Okay.
What you call the far right, falsely.
You think is the normal person. Okay.
Yes. Literally, you could go back 10 or 15 years, and these policies were completely normal. In fact, one of the tricks that I think is funny. One thing that's quite funny is to like take a speech from Obama and Hillary, and then go to someone and say, who's sort of on the sort of what I call the lunatic left, and say, what do you think of the speech by Trump? I'm like, oh wow, he's the worst person ever. Actually, that was a speech by Obama, or actually, that was a speech by Hillary.
I agree. No, I agree that the center of gravity in this country has shifted. Certainly, the Democratic Party shifted to the left, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people like Rupert Lowe. I'm talking
right,
about
please.
people.
It's actually just normal people. It's just normal people. It's just normal people, and and here are the principles. And tell me which of these sound terrible. That we should have secure borders. That we should have safe cities. That we should have sensible spending. Which of those three are far right fringe? And I would like to just admonish you and the media for the absurd characterization of the far right. It is false and misleading and nonsense. Please keep this part in.
We'll keep all of this in. But
There's a lot of people who have been trying to reconcile in their mind what's been happening in the evolution of our society over the last 10 to 15 years. Things that used to be perfectly normal, reasonable positions. Now some, and a lot of it has to do with the mainstream media, are trying to make you think you're far right if you believe it. They're trying to shame you out of believing it. Whereas these positions were perfectly normal not that long ago. Let me give you a great example. Allow me to take you back to 2008. 2008. Listen to this extremely far-right speech from Barack Obama.
This administration, the Bush administration, has done nothing to control the problem that we have. We've had 5 million undocumented workers come over the borders since George Bush took office. It has become an extraordinary problem. And the reason the American people are concerned is because they are seeing their own economic position slip away. And oftentimes, employers are exploiting these undocumented workers. They're not paying the minimum wage. They're not observing worker safety laws. As president, I will make sure that we finally have the kind of border security that we need. That's step number one. Step number two is to take on employers. Right now, an employer has more of a chance of getting hit by lightning than be prosecuted for hiring an undocumented worker. That has to change. They have to be held accountable. Start shedding some light on the problem, and we can once again be a nation of laws and a nation of immigrants. That's what I intend to do as president of the United States.
Okay, well, hey, that was 2008. Democratic candidate Barack Obama complaining about all the illegal immigrants taking away opportunities from people who live there. Now, if you dare question immigration, you're far right. You support this. You support the far right agenda. That's the kind of stuff they're throwing out there, and you've got to resist it. If you're a regular, normal, reasonable, middle class Canadian, middle of the road political views, you should know the center never changed. You didn't get more extreme. The left got more extreme, and they tried to drag the center way over to their side on the left. Well, that may make on a grid you look far right, but you're far from far right. You're actually a normal person and a responsible citizen of your country. Elon Musk articulated that very, very well. Let me get to another listener DM. This one is from, I hope I'm saying this right, Angel. Scott, I'm just catching up on some of your pods. And regarding forest fires, I used to roll my eyes at my mom a bit with her conspiracy thoughts. But the way the world has gone the past couple of years, I now take it a little more seriously, for lack of a better term. But she would state fires would happen to evacuate people, and then the resources are able to be taken away by the government, and they're able to do it because nobody is around to see it. With forest fires, it evacuates a lot of people. I don't know. I'm not sure if I should be skeptical about things, but it's getting harder and harder lately. Angel. I hope I said that right again. Thank you for that. You know, you're allowed to wonder these things. Some of these things seem really fishy. They don't pass the smell test. It's okay to start wondering what's going on. We've had some massive fires that created insane devastation. I'm thinking of the fires in Los Angeles, the fires in Hawaii. Have you noticed? Oh, and the fires in Jasper. Have you noticed that when there's a forest fire, they don't just tell people, evacuate your home and you can go back when the fire's out? In some cases, they've got people out of their homes for weeks. For the life of me, I can't figure out why that would be necessary. Once the forest around the house has burned, the fire's out, you should be allowed to go home next day. Make sure the hot spots are out and you're good. But the fire can't burn the forest twice. You should be safe to go home. They're keeping people out of their homes for a very long time. That's an interesting observation. I'm not going to say you're crazy to start wondering about things like that, because, again, there's certain things that just don't pass the smell test. Speaking of conspiracies, this one is from David. Scott, I am not a tin hat wearing conspiracy theorist, but when too many coincidences all happen, you start to question what's happening. The government wants to take away guns and disarm the citizens. The government wants to build massive AI data centers that process insane amounts of data. The government passed Bill C-22 to record and access all your data. The government keeps giving itself more unchallengeable powers, and the government aligning itself with the nations that have dictatorships versus freedom and empowerment of their own citizens. Plus, we're importing people from nations that are accustomed to corrupt governments and suppressing our national voices. You have to ask, what is their goal? Are they trying to crash the economy so they can exploit it? Corrupt the government, then when the system is broken, sell off all we have for their company's profits? Scott, what are they trying to do? David, I don't know. I don't know what the end game is here. I really don't understand it myself. But there's a lot of things where, on paper, if you just sit down and break down what's happened, especially in the trade negotiations with America, not a lot has been done in the way of fixing our most important relationship. But we sure have talked a lot of smack, and we sure have tried to make sure that a deal doesn't get done, because I think the Prime Minister is far more interested in dealing with other nations. He talked about it in the Davos speech, for God's sake. He tried to organize against the Americans openly. I'm not really surprised we are where we are. Are they trying to tank our economy intentionally? Well, that would be very, very sinister. That's a plot that I'm not going to get into it, but I'll tell you, if you're thinking that way, a lot of other people are thinking that way too. Let's get to another one from the Prime Minister. Here is him speaking again yesterday in PEI.
Prime Minister, I'm wondering how you see this window of time of trade talks given the new 30-day deadline. Do you think that this is a meaningful opportunity to approach some sort of endgame with the United States, or is it just another pressure tactic from the Trump administration?
It's both. I mean, that's the direct answer. We've seen a series of trade negotiations that the U.S. has undertaken, and normally there's a deadline. Normally there's an outsized tariff associated with that deadline. First observation. The second thing is that I would say that in our interactions this week with various levels of the U.S. administration, mine with the President, Minister LeBlanc, with his counterpart, Madame Charette, with hers, other officials, that there's a level of engagement and a breadth of engagement that reflects the seriousness of the trade relationship and the breadth of the issues. So it creates an opportunity. Now, and I'm going to hand back to you, Kate, but I'll just say that First Ministers, Premiers, and myself, we've had a series of conversations on this, on what it means, what our priorities are, where we go from here. And I will give you two observations from that. One, we all recognize that the most important thing we can do is to continue to build this economy strong and unite this economy. That's job one. That immediate benefits for Canadians, and that is what we can control. And the second is to be united with respect to our strategy, our negotiating strategy, and our objectives. And part of that unity is recognizing that there isn't a series of little trade issues, they're broad trade issues. All of them have to be part of a comprehensive agreement.
It's just words, platitudes. Hey, listen, we had USMCA. USMCA was a deal that Donald Trump negotiated. He doesn't like it anymore because there's still some trade irritants that somehow slipped through the cracks on USMCA. Could we continue with USMCA, which I think everybody agrees was working, except for a few little irritants, things like supply management? Could we get to a place where we're doing that? Could we get to a place where we're supplying the energy to America and they are leading the world in manufacturing? Could we get to that place? There's deals to be done here, everyone. The Prime Minister just needs the will to do it. And frankly, when we know they had a deal back in October and we blew it up, I'm wondering what is the end game here. Next listener DM from Christina. We need better leadership. It's not Canada versus the USA. It's the USA being run by a businessman who isn't afraid to take slack and make deals, while ours are off spending millions on planes and plane food. Airplanes, by the way, just to be clear. Christina, good comments. Thank you. This next one is from Allie. What I would love for you to discuss when appropriate and when it happens in the next time the media goes off on a week-long meltdown about something Pierre Poilievre did, could you decipher what is actually happening? To me, it's extremely interesting that any time that happens, it's as a result and parallel to when the Conservatives are rising in the polls. The Liberals are scared shitless of him, and they know when he wins, their gravy train is over. I think it's important for people to pay attention to this and also for them to broadcast it to their friends and family when this happens. People need to see through the spin. When they're going after Pierre Poilievre, it's because they're afraid of Pierre Poilievre. If they thought they could beat Pierre Poilievre, they wouldn't want him gone so badly. Allie, that's a hell of a message. Thank you very much for that one. Next up is Jordan. I just listened to Friday's episode about voter fraud in America. I, as well as my family, sat by the TV to listen to what you had to say. Immediately, as I started to talk about it on social media, I got a lot of negative comments and friends unfollowing me because they couldn't believe I, quote, support Trump, when all I was doing is saying exactly what you are saying. If they did it in the U.S., they can do it here. Immediately, my mind went to Mark Carney's first stop after being elected, which was to China. My point with sharing this info was connecting the dots. We are kind of living in a matrix where people really don't want to be privy to a lot of information. They'd rather act blind than come to terms with reality. Jordan, thank you. There's a lot in there to unpack, and I think I'm going to leave it packed. I think everybody understands what you're saying, though. You know, it's tough to talk about touchy issues like immigration. We here in Canada, we've got a big issue with immigration. We should be able to solve that problem, but so far, we haven't had a lot of luck. What's going on in Canada right now could, though, land you in hot water politically with your friends and family. Imagine that. If you suggested what Trump is doing in America is right, people that broke the law to get in the country should be deported immediately, especially if they're a violent offender. Get them out of America. That's what ICE is doing. They're getting rid of people that shouldn't be there. Under normal circumstances, we could probably agree that that's what's necessary to get rid of people that won't leave. But it's Donald Trump, right? And people can't take away the policy from the man. You know, they think automatically if you're in favor of deporting people, mass deportations for people that came into the country illegally and won't leave. If you're in favor of that, you support Donald Trump. Well, hell, I can tell you that's not true. Being in favor of secure borders is not a far-right position. It's not a MAGA position. It's a perfectly reasonable position. You heard Barack Obama earlier on this episode talking about the exact same thing. The politicians are changing their narrative, and the media is helping them do it because they're going really, really concerningly left-wing. Let's get to another clip. Digital ID has been a conspiracy theory for a long time. Well, the Prime Minister talked about digital ID yesterday.
We agreed to bring in digital verification for tradespeople by the spring of next year, and those negotiations are underway, and I know we all intend to push them forward. And we're going to discuss some further ambitious ways to cut regulation across our economy.
This is a weird one. I'm surprised this is how they're going to pilot this, but it's going to be for tradespeople. You're all going to have a digital ID. And that digital ID will confirm that if you're a licensed forklift operator in Newfoundland and Labrador, then you can also drive a forklift in Nova Scotia. That sort of thing. Huh. Interesting. There does need to be a better way of verifying credentials. Is digital ID the way we want that done? In this big push to add all these data centers for AI. I don't know where that's going. And I'm not an expert on the digital ID stuff, but there are other people online. Some of them have podcasts, and you should follow them and get their take on it because it's real interesting stuff about the theories about why this government is so hell-bent on A, having access to our devices, B, being able to surveil us, and C, creating digital ID. This episode is brought to you by The Caulking Store. If you're in the Mississauga area, they are right at the border of Etobicoke at Renforth and the 401. They've got a great website that you can shop online, thecaulkingstore.com. These guys are great, and they know that the big box stores, they may be bigger, but bigger isn't always better. And if you've got a project that you're working on, whether you're a contractor or a weekend warrior DIY type of person, you need to make sure you've got the right tools for the job and the right products. And it could be from Pecora, Tremco, Suprema, Nuco, or any of the other big brand names that they carry at the Caulking Store. This is important. They're Canadian owned and operated. Satisfaction guaranteed. They've got a lowest price guarantee, a seniors discount, contractor pricing, and fast and reliable delivery. So if you need caulking, sealant, that sort of thing, the Caulking Store is where to go. Thecaulkingstore.com, or you can find them near Renforth and the 401 at the border of Mississauga and Etobicoke.
Hi, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. Are you looking for a beach read this summer? May I suggest your big wireless bill? It's got suspense, mystery, a slightly flat, emotional arc, and a shocking twist where you realize you've been overpaying the entire time. Fortunately, though, Mint's story is better. Every plan, $15 a month, even unlimited. That's it. Happy ending. Zero tears.
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
First, I have to be convinced, we have to be convinced, the team has to be convinced, the premiers have to be convinced that an agreement is worth the paper it's written on, and I think at the core of that is that the agreement recognizes the benefits, the very, very many benefits that trade with Canada brings, not just to Canadians, but to Americans. I mean, it's their self-interest. But it has to recognize, it has to be aligned, has to have provisions that reinforce, of course. But we will know when we see it. And I would say, we go in from Missouri, to use an American expression, on this, and with wide eyes, lots of options, rolling up our sleeves, doing the work, but we're working on behalf of Canadians, and we'll know it when we see it. And final point, there are other things we could have done in the intervening time that we didn't do in agreements, perhaps because of the nature of your question.
The question was whether or not we can trust a deal if we come to a deal with the Americans. I think so. I mean, they're the ones that wanted a new deal. Can we trust it? Can we count on them sticking to it? Well, I think we've got to have a bit of a backbone and a bit of a spine. I don't know why we compromised on the Gordie Howe Bridge. That seems like an unreasonable one, unless we were getting something else in exchange for that. And you know, when it comes to dealing with Donald Trump, he's respecting USMCA. We have the best trade deal in the world right now because of USMCA. Anything that's not covered under USMCA are the things that are facing tariffs right now. I don't know why they wouldn't trust him if he signs a deal, but I also acknowledge there's a lot of people who just don't trust Donald Trump, period. And if that's your bend, no problem at all. This message is from Ian. Scott, quick question for the pod, and great work, by the way. Okay, thank you, Ian. I appreciate that. Do you know if us purchasing water bombers would count toward our NATO defense spending targets? That's a very good question. I don't know the answer to that because this government keeps moving the goalpost on what does and doesn't count towards NATO spending. But I would argue it probably should. You know, we're not just defending ourselves from the Russians and the Chinese. We have a clear and present danger here in North America because of forest fires. And if water bombers can put them out or help mitigate that, then I don't know why we wouldn't use those and count it, because we need to defend our Arctic. We need to defend our North. And that's a great way to do it, is to make sure it doesn't burn down. Next one. This is from Desiree. Hi, Scott, longtime listener. I found out last year that all provinces except Quebec spray glyphosate. Glyphosate? I hope I said that right. Oh, in brackets, Roundup on Crown land forests. They do this to kill the hardwood trees for the softwood lumber industry. The government claims it doesn't cause dry conditions. Hardwood trees contain a lot of water and provide natural fire breaks. The Liberals don't want to stop forest fires. How can you convince people of a climate emergency without forest fires? Their entire platform would fall apart. Weird that people believe climate change only burns forests in climate activist areas like Canada and California. Desiree, hey, that's a real great note. Thank you. I'm still trying to understand these forest fires. Let me be perfectly honest with you. I did not do very well as a Boy Scout back in the day. I struggled to light a fire. And now, as an adult, I also sometimes struggle to get the fire going. I don't understand how one hot ember from a tree that allegedly got hit by lightning can travel hundreds of meters away and almost instantly light another tree on fire. That has never been my experience when I'm trying to light wood. And I don't know how these fires rage as quickly as they do. But clearly, as an observation here on the DMs that have come in, there's a lot of people who are calling BS on what's going on here. There's a lot of people that feel there are some conspiracies afoot. That's a problem for the government. When people aren't getting the answers they want, or they feel like they're being lied to, the conspiracy theories set in. What did the Prime Minister just do? Well, he either lied or seriously misled the Canadian people about this deal for the Gordie Howe Bridge. Then you got to ask yourself, well, why'd he do it? What else is he lying about? You know, it's a snowball that rolls into a giant snow boulder real quick. They got to be careful. The government is, they're losing the room, and Canadians are losing trust. One more DM here. I've got two more DMs. This one is from Rob. Doug Ford needs to shut up with his rhetoric. He's been doing the exact same thing for the past 2 years about the USA. Thank you. I appreciate that, Rob. You know, when Doug was doing the whole pound on his chest, we're going to defend Canada, Canada strong. When he was doing all that for a while, it got him reelected. It got him another majority government. Great. But if I'm reading the room right, I think it's wearing thin, and I don't think people are in the same mood now that they were in a year ago. And I'm really not sure that that strategy from Doug Ford is working. This one here is from Billy. Scott, I am wholly convinced that you are a fortune teller. I'm listening to an old podcast from October 2025 when you talked about provincial barriers on alcohol sales. Now today, and he links up to the article that the premiers have finally come to an agreement that they're going to allow Canadians to buy direct from the alcohol manufacturer in another province. That's a baby step. We should open up the entire market. Mark Carney has been saying since day one Canadian economy, not each individual province's economy and the national economy, one Canadian economy. It is ludicrous that I cannot walk into my local Ontario liquor store and find a selection of beer from Alberta and Saskatchewan. Why the hell not? It's because of interprovincial trade barriers. Now, what they've done here is said, okay, well, you can order it directly from the brewer if you want some. Hell no. Put it in the damn liquor store. That's going to be great for business. You know what? While I'm on this topic, let's talk about alcohol sales. The CBC had a special guest on the other day. He is someone in the wine industry. This is someone in the wine industry. Listen very carefully to what he said on the CBC. This was yesterday.
And as a winery owner, it's disappointing that, it costs more money to send my money across Canada. I mean, even with the dirty secret is with the 50% tariff, it's still cheaper to sell it to the U.S.
I mean, I think you're echoing the frustration of so many business owners across the country. Ron, I want to ask you, because in many ways, your perspective and your point of view is what really matters given the kind of impact that you guys feel with these tariffs. So if you were to be writing this deal, what would be in it?
I'd immediately allow Canadian-made wine, Canadian-made beer, Canadian-made spirits, cider, to be treated as domestic product with no provincial markup. Allow us to collect the HST or the PST. In BC, the PST is 42% higher than the regular PST. But allow us to collect that and stop collecting the 71% to 300% markups that all these provincial liquor boards doing. We could have a great Canadian market. The dirty secret is another dirty secret, lots of them, is that Canada only drinks 12% of its own wine. Countries like France, 75%, Australia, 90%. We truly have a chance. This is a chance of a lifetime to finally fix something that's been broken for decades. And I just ask the premiers to get serious about it and talk to real people who are affected, not bureaucrats trying to protect provincial monopolies.
Amen. Preach. Say it louder for the people in the back. These premiers have had a year to solve the problem and haven't solved the problem. A year ago, they were supposed to get rid of the interprovincial trade barriers. There is a winery owner. He said it himself. Even with the tariffs, it's still better for them to sell into America than from province to province. The premiers had an opportunity to fix it. They dropped the ball, and they are continuing to hold back our economy. It's shameful that in a year they couldn't figure out that very basic thing. Last DM. I've been saving this one since last week, and I want to read this to you because it's got good insight, and it's from a regular listener whose opinion I value, and she works for Canada Post. This one is from Melissa. This is about the managers at Canada Post getting bonuses. She says, bluntly, make them answer actual questions and give actual numbers on how much their payouts are. Managers are getting at-risk pay. For what? What are they at risk for? I think that even during COVID, when they were inside their offices and us workers were dealing with the public and afraid of touching doorknobs and going door to door. Believe me, the staff are just as frustrated that the managers are getting these crazy bonuses. My one beef with you, though, is when you say nobody will be disappointed to lose Canada Post. I want you to think about that rant you had the other day about losing AM radio. I can imagine that your radio hosts get that all the time. Nobody listens to radio. So there's many other listening options now. It's outdated. Nobody would care if it's gone. And that stings, especially when you know it's true. By the way, I'm going to interject here and say, Melissa, that's a fantastic example. Thank you for putting it to me that way. And I did say, I don't think too many people would miss Canada Post if it were gone. I'll circle back on that. Here's the rest of the message. She says, to hear you say that about Canada Post stings because it simply isn't true. A lot of people rely on their mail and they pick it up daily, even meeting me at the box when I'm there. Yes, there's lots of other options, but I've seen their service and it's awful. I wouldn't want to trust them with secure items like my license being mailed to me or a new credit card or a passport. Flyers, although annoying, contribute to a major increase in sales for a lot of businesses. I think Canadian Tire once said that when their flyers come out, they report like 17% higher sales, but don't quote me. realtors, get their names out there, etc. So while it may be easy to say that it's outdated and no one would care if it's gone, that would be 30,000 jobs lost in Canada, not 2,000 on an auto plant or 1,000 on a parts plant. 30,000 full-time jobs. Don't put it in people's ears that no one would care if Canada Post is gone, because a lot of people would care, especially me and my coworkers. Melissa, thank you. I appreciate that, and as I always say during listener DMs, you can call me out for any reason on anything you want. But let's talk about what you sent me here, Melissa. Number one, I don't want to see a single other Canadian out of a job. Not one. What's happened to the people in this country is disgusting. Our economy is in the tank. And because of that, the federal government, who are flailing, trying to figure out how to cut costs so they can continue to spend on stupid stuff like high-speed rail from Quebec City to Toronto, there's a lot of people getting caught up in the crosshairs, and they are losing their job, and that has an effect on their families, their communities, and more. No more job losses. When it comes to Canada Post, when I say I don't think anyone's going to miss it, let me clarify. I know there's a lot of people that count on mail delivery. I know that. My parents are seniors, and there are some of those people that rely on their mail. I get it. They also like it. In some cases, that's their only point of contact with other people on any given day, is when the mail person shows up. So I understand where you're coming from, and I know there are people who would miss it. Here's my problem, and I think the problem that most Canadians have got with Canada Post. They are hemorrhaging money. We just gave them an over $1 billion bailout, and that's not even the first time. And when that goodwill money goes to Canada Post so they can continue operations, the first story that drops is that the bonuses got paid to the executives. There's not a single Canadian listening, I don't think, maybe some at Canada Post, but I don't think there's a single regular Canadian listening that's got any appetite at all for these management types that aren't even on the front lines, that are clearly managing a business that is failing, to get a bonus, especially with taxpayer money. Businesses have to operate like businesses. If it's something we agree we need because it's part of our national fabric, then yeah, the Canadian taxpayers may have to step in and get involved. But there's a limit to our generosity there, and that money should not be going to executive bonuses. Could you spend that money just to keep it going? Could you improve the service with it? Could you find efficiencies and make it better? That's what we want to see, a return on investment. Yep, we'll help you out now, but make sure you come out of this stronger on the other side. There's no evidence that Canada Post is getting stronger on the other side. It just seems to me they've got incompetent but very well-paid management. That's what people are sick of, is hearing their money got wasted on Canada Post when they're not seeing improvements. Is there enough money? I think there is. We gave Canada Post a lot of taxpayer money. Now let's see them use it. Make the product more modern. Make it work for more people. Make it more efficient. Make it profitable if you can. Imagine that. A crown corporation that can actually swim on its own. That's what I'm looking for. My friends, that's going to wrap up this episode of Scott Fox After 9. I have a tea time in 90 minutes, so my attention is required elsewhere. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I'm going to let you know that next week, a full week of episodes, and then I'm going to go on a summer break. I did this last year for a shorter duration. I'm going to do a longer break in August. I want you to have a break. I need a break, and it's summertime. I should be outside. You should be outside doing things that make you happy. So next week, don't miss an episode. And then after that, a break is coming. By the way, next week, it'll be next week. I've been saying for a while I'm going to do it, so I got to do it. There will be another Silent Date update. Catch you right back here on Monday. Oh.